Okay, I think we are all set. Sir, name, over to you.
Hmm. Thank you so much, sir. All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you're keeping well. And I think we are formally ready to begin today's webinar that is going to focus on the listening module. So we had our first meeting on Friday, in which we spoke about the speaking module. We discussed everything in detail. We discussed the assessment criteria. We discussed that there are three parts. Part number one being interview introduction, part number two being cue card, and part number three being relevant discussion. We also discussed what is it that you can do to improve your performance in the speaking module and also speaking in general. And today we are meeting to talk about the listening module. Next Friday we will meet again to talk about the reading module, and Sunday we'll meet again. Next Sunday we'll meet again to talk about the writing module, and that's where we'll formally conclude this webinar series that we are offering from the platform of Quva during Ramadan. So those of you who are joining for the first time or who were not around on Friday, to tell you a bit about myself, this is Mohammad Naeem Riaz, and I am working as a senior IELTS instructor and an interview coach with a consultancy here in Rawalpindi and Islamabad. And I have been teaching IELTS for over 3 years. And in addition to this, I have been mainly interacting with tertiary level students or university students for about 5 years in relation to English language teaching. So with these expertise in the background, we begin today's discussion. So first, let's talk about today's session objectives. What are the objectives? What is it that we are going to do in today's webinar, in today's session? So as far as objectives are concerned, those are to, first of all, highlight common mistakes that students do, due to which they get lower scores compared to their preparation. Oftentimes, students come tell me that, okay, they were expecting to get 7.5 or 7, or maybe in some cases 8 in the listening module, and they ended up getting either 6 or 6.5. So we are going to talk about the mistakes. We are going to highlight the mistakes that most students commit when they are taking the IELTS exam, especially doing the listening module. Then to introduce all the 4 sections or parts with their distinct characteristics. So each part, there are going to be 4 parts. I'm going to discuss this in detail. So it is important for you to understand what is it that each part entails. Just as we saw it in speaking, there were 3 parts, and each part had its own distinct understanding. So this is also something that we see happening in the listening module. Then to introduce methods to improve listening in general and listening for the IELTS exam in particular. This is also something that we aim to do this evening. Then to show you live demonstration for better navigation. This is another thing on the agenda for today's session or for today's meeting. So now we'll move forward and we'll have a quick overview of the IELTS listening exam. So as far as the duration is concerned of the listening module, I told you the other day that listening, reading, and writing are going to be held together, and then speaking is going to be held separately. So, listening, reading, and writing, abbreviated as LRW, in this, listening comes first. Earlier, we used to have both IELTS on paper and IELTS on computer, but now in Pakistan, we only have IELTS on computer. IELTS on paper is banned. In IELTS on paper, this is for you to understand, so that if you are reading something or if you're watching anything else on YouTube or anywhere else, you don't get confused. In IELTS paper, we used to have 30 minutes for the audio and then 10 minutes for you to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. 30 minutes for the audio and 10 minutes for you to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. But when it comes to IELTS on computer, the audio would be of 30 minutes and then you would have only 2 minutes to review your answers. those 2 minutes are for you to review your answers only. Remember, do not leave any of the answers to be entered into the system during those 2 minutes, because those 2 minutes are for you to review your answers. And if you dedicate a set of 30 seconds to each part, because I told you earlier that there are 4 parts and I'm going to discuss this in detail, it means that you would barely have 30 seconds to, number one, take a look at your answers for each part, and then 2 minutes to take a look at your answers for all the 4 parts. So, as far as the duration is concerned, there would be 30 minutes for the audio and then 2 minutes for you to review your answers. Then moving, so it means that you should be typing out all your responses. You should be choosing right answers during the audio, and you should not wait for those 2 minutes to register your responses or to enter your responses into the system. Yes, there would be stationery placed in front of you. There would be papers and markers or pens or pencils, but those are for you to do the rough work during the audio. Do not wait for the last 2 minutes to register your responses or to submit your responses. There is a reason why I'm repeating it over and over again. A student of mine did this mistake despite making it clear multiple times, and when he came back after the test, he got good scores in reading, then good scores in writing, and then good scores in the speaking module. In fact, in the speaking module, he got 7 bands, but in listening, he, if I remember correctly, got 4 or 4.5. Why? Because he waited for those last 2 minutes to register all his responses, and as soon as those 2 minutes were over, his screen moved from, or the interface of his screen moved from the listening module to the reading module, and then he had all his answers written down in the rough work, or as part of his rough work. He was not able to register his responses. So please do not commit this unfavorable and wanted mistake. Now, as I told you earlier, there are going to be 4 sections or 4 parts, each part having 10 questions. There would be 4 parts or 4 sections. Each part would have 10 questions. Each question would carry 1 point, which means that in total, you would be dealing with 40 questions, and you would be dealing with also 40 points, right? And remember that there is no penalty for any incorrect answer. So you should make sure to do all the 40 questions. There is no penalty, there is no negative marking, just as it happens in some of the tests here in Pakistan. Against each correct answer, you would get 1 point, and against each incorrect answer, you would get a 0 or no point. And at the same time, I would also like to discuss the marking criteria with you, or bands scheme with you. So if you are having 30 or 31 correct answers, then it means you would be getting 7 bands. 32 to 34 means 7.5 bands. 35 and 36, 8 bands. And then 37 and 38 correct answers are for 8.5 bands. And 39 and 40 correct answers means that you will get 9 bands. Remember, I tell this to my students, and I'm going to share this with you all as well, that listening is the highest scoring module. Listening is the highest scoring module. And this, again, I'm saying on the basis of some tests, some trials, some results, not just some, but so many results that I've seen in the course of last 3 years. So I would have multiple students getting 6 or 6.5 in reading, 6 or 6.5 in speaking, 6 or 6.5 in writing, but a massive 8 or 8.5 in listening. So on the basis of that and my personal experience and observation, I must tell you that listening is the highest scoring module. But how can you achieve a high band score? This is something that I would discuss in a while. Moving forward, why most students get 5.5 or 6 bands? Why most students get 5.5 or 6 bands? So the first problem that I have encountered is that students lose focus after a missed answer. So if they realize, or if they think that, or if they find out that they have missed an answer, they are going to panic, they are going to freak out, and as a result of that, they will end up where they could have missed, or where they were missing one answer, they would end up missing two or three or four answers, and that's where things go wrong. And as a result of that, of course, the panic would increase, and resultantly or subsequently, students would lose motivation altogether, or you would lose motivation altogether. So if you realize that you missed an answer, because for being human beings, it is natural for you to, you know, have your thought processes disturbed or disrupted. It is natural that you would lose your focus. It is natural that you would not be able to have your attention drawn throughout. And so it is natural that you would skip a question or two. I mean, in the first place, it is something that should not be happening. You should have practiced so much that it's not happening, or it should not be happening. But even if it does, then you don't need to worry too much about that. You don't need to panic. What's gone is gone. Quoting Shakespeare, what's done is done. Just move forward. The second thing is spelling error. Very common mistake I've seen students committing or making. Very common mistake. There are spelling errors. For example, if there is in the answer, students have to write scholar. So the correct spelling is SCHOLAR. So if they have written SCHOLER, apparently they have gotten hold of the right answer. But because the spelling that they have entered is incorrect, their answer would be considered wrong or incorrect. Then poor prediction. Students do have this habit to predict what is it that the audio is going to discuss. Yes, it can happen sometimes that the prediction you're making is going to be exactly, in sync with what's going to be offered in the audio, but it's not something that happens all the time. You should definitely have your prediction lined up. You should definitely have prediction identified, but at the same time, you need to be listening to the audio. So you need to be basically multitasking. You need to be able to predict. You need to be focusing on the audio. You need to make sure that you're not losing your attention, and at the same time, you need to be continuously um, stay engaged on what's written on the screen. So these all things would be happening simultaneously. Then the last thing that I've seen, uh, students encountering, so where they could have gotten 7 or 7.5, they would end up getting 6 or 6.5. And just recently a student came. She wanted to repeat her test because her earlier scores were not good. And let me tell you, her command over English language was brilliant. But the reason why she was not getting good scores, if I talk to you about it from the point of view of the listening module, was that she did not have a proper section wise strategy, or she did not have proper section wise strategies. Just as I told you earlier, there are 4 parts, and there is uh, you know um distinct characteristic relevant to or concerned with each part. You should be having a separate familiarity with each part, and that uh, I think solves half of the problem. Without any further delay, we'll move forward to slide number 5 and talk about part 1. So I told you there are 4 parts, and each part has 10 questions, and each question carries 1 point, which means that you are in total dealing with 40 points or 40 questions. Now, I'm going to repeat these things, but just so that you know, there would be 4 parts, as I mentioned earlier. First 2 parts are going to be social in setting. Okay. First 2 parts are going to be social in setting, whereas second 2 parts are going to be academic in setting or nature. I'm repeating. First 2 parts are going to be social in setting, whereas second 2 parts are going to be academic in setting. Then another thing that you need to keep in mind is that parts 1 and 3 are based on dialogues. Parts 1 and 3 would be based on dialogues, whereas part 2 and 4 would be based on monologue. Monologue. Now, what's a monologue? It means one person talking. I'm going to discuss predictable question types, predictable scenarios, and all these things in relation to each part. But this is for you to know. Again, I'm telling you or repeating. Parts 1 and 2 are going to be social in setting, whereas part 3 and 4 are going to be academic in setting. And similarly, parts 1 and 3 would have dialogues, and parts 2 and 4 would have monologues. Let's talk about the first part based on everyday conversation. So there would be two people talking to one another, and during that conversation, one of the individuals would be seeking the information and the other individual would be providing the information. One of the individuals would be seeking the information and the other individual would be providing the information. And as far as predictable scenarios are concerned, so maybe there is some conversation regarding some registration, some hotel reservation, some hostel reservation, some ticketing that the person who's calling or who's reaching out, he or she wants to have some ticketing done, etc., etc. So these are some of the predictable scenarios. And then you would basically have to be interacting with numbers, names, and spellings, so on and so forth. Numbers, names, and spellings. So I would say that part 1 is very easy. Part 1 is something in which you should be getting 10 out of 10 correct answers. Even those students who are preparing for IELTS general training, who are apparently needing or who apparently need 4.5 or 5 overall, and then similarly 4.5 or 5 in listening. So they mainly or basically target part 1 because in some cases their English language competency is not as good as it is for academic students. So part 1 is that part in which or where you should be getting all the correct answers, because you are mainly dealing with names, numbers, and spellings. And in some cases, or in some instances where the spellings are difficult, the audio clarifies, the audio tells, the speaker in the audio tells that this is what I'm talking about, right? Then, as far as predictable question types are concerned, so these days it's complete the sentences or complete the form or complete the table below, choosing no more than one word and or a number for each answer. This is again very important, choosing no more than one word and or a number. Now it's not just one word, nor is it just a number. In it could be a number, it could be a word, and it could be a combination of a word and a number, because the instructions read choose no more than one word and or a number. So there is a slash between and or. So it could be a number, it could be a word, and it could be a combination of a word and a number. For example, 9 p.m., 2 a.m., and 25th January. So something like this could be there. So don't panic. Remember, IELTS is always very clear with its instruction. I have had a chance to teach some other tests too that are mainly being administered in the UK and around. And what I've seen is that IELTS is far more clear in its understanding and instructions as compared to other tests that are being held. So when they're saying that you can choose no more than one word and or a number, then you have this discussion that you can choose a word, you can choose a number, and if required, you can choose a number and a word. But of course, if it is the requirement, right? So this is another important point to take into account. We'll move forward.
Sir,
Yes,
can
yes.
I ask a question at this point, just for
Yes, please,
everybody's
please,
clarity?
please.
So when you enter a number, this may sound like a silly question, but just for clarity, do
Mhm.
you enter all numbers in numerical form, or is there an allowance to use, like write
Yes,
numbers?
because again, the idea is that instructions are very clearly reading choose no more than one word and or a number, which means that they're clearly distinguishing between something which is typed in alphabets and then
Hmm.
something which is typed in numbers. So
Okay.
numbers have to be written in numerical form.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that clarification, sir.
You're welcome. So yes, I'm so glad that you asked it. Now we'll move forward and talk about the second part, which is monologue and map. So map can be there, map cannot be there, but in 50 to 60% cases, we have seen that map comes and it is something with which most students struggle. But just as I mentioned earlier, my students do not struggle because we talk about direction language in detail. At times, we even dedicate a whole session to uh, discussion on map. So, so when my students are getting 8 or 8.5, so it means that their understanding of map is quite good. So as the title suggests, based on a monologue and a map. Now, monologue means one person talking, just as I told you earlier. And just as I mentioned earlier, map can be there and map cannot be there. The setting would again be social, and the information which is being provided to you could be about some tourist destination or some cultural heritage, maybe cultural heritage sites such as airport, hospital, or library, or it could be about some employing company or office or workplace. But these are some of the predictable scenarios. These are some of the social things that you are going to be listening to or encountering during the second part. As far as predictable question types are concerned, so questions 11 to 14 are most likely to be based on MCQ single answer and MCQ double answer. And similarly, questions 15 to 20, these are usually based on a map or diagram. You have to label the map and label the diagram. And sometimes when there is no map or when there is no diagram, when students are lucky enough, then it could be MCQ double answer and it could be MCQ single answer, something along these lines. But it would be you choosing correct letters or options. Okay. Then what is it that you need to keep in mind when you're dealing with the second part? It's basically the sequence of the audio. Sequence is very important for you to stay grounded. So, and yes, sequence is important throughout the test. The test evolves with questions. So, question number 31 would come first, and then question number 32 would come later, and so on and so forth. And then at last, you would deal with question number 40. But especially in the second part, I think sequence is very, very important. So if you missed or skipped a direction or two while listening, then too you can easily catch up if there is a map or if there is a diagram. But you see, I would say at the end of the day, it's the game of staying focused. It's the game of not losing your attention. It's the game of staying into the audio to get good scores. So that's all for part two. I think I would like to take questions, a question or two, and before we move forward, what do you think about it, sir?
Yeah, first of all, I think Wasim, the distortion is because of internet issues at your end because I can hear surname perfectly fine. Kuratulan has also confirmed that the audio is fine. बाकी लोग भी confirm कर दें if they can hear surname clearly and without any distortion. ठीक है समरानुल्लाह की तरफ से भी आ गई है confirmation. सो ठीक है बेहतरीन है अच्छा सेकेंडली डू यू गाइस हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस टू आस्क एट दिस पॉइंट प्लीज वसीम गो अहेड
Sir, I have a question that if someone with special needs or a person with abilities, how could he handle the 2 minutes? How could he write in 2 minutes all the questions? How to solve it?
Yes, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, that's a very good question, Wasim, and I'm so glad that you have asked it. So, when it comes to, and I understand, and I've been informed by the management of Quva Pro that we are having some students who are visually challenged, which is good. So, uh, there are a couple of things that you need to understand. If you're someone with special needs and if you want to take the test, then you have to reach out to designated offices of either British Council or IDP. Or if you think you cannot reach out, you cannot access the offices directly, then you need to write to them, telling them that these are your needs and these are your circumstances, yet you want to take the test because it's your requirement for XYZ. And they would be more than happy to accommodate you or facilitate you. And then when they're accommodating you or facilitating you, so they would keep all these requirements in mind with international standards shaping those discussions that you're being allowed this. And also, uh, they would ask you whether you would like to have anything additional included in you know included in the way your test is being administered. So this is not something to worry about. British Council and IDP officials, they would be more than happy to facilitate your request in coordination with Cambridge, and each and every need of yours will be taken care of. So there is nothing to worry about.
Great. That's great. That's fine. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I think we'll move forward now and talk about the third part. We have so far dealt with first two parts. There are four parts, and we'll move towards the third part. And part number three is based on multiple speakers. There could be two individuals, and there could be, in some cases, three individuals. And I told you earlier that first two parts are set social in setting, whereas second two parts are academic in setting. So, um, in case of part number three, it's going to be a dialogue with two and, in some cases, three individuals, as I told you earlier. And the conversation or discussion would be about some research presentation, some research project that maybe students are working on, or some lecture that they have attended or that they are going to attend. By they, I mean students. And then, in addition, um, it could be two or three students talking to one another. And then, in a recent instance, I saw that there were two students and they were talking to another senior student while choosing a course or something like that. So it could be two students talking to one another. It could be three students talking to one another. It could be two students talking to their teacher, and it could be a student talking to his or her teacher. So these are some of the things that you're going to be experiencing. And especially, if I talk to you about part three, it's the identification of opinions or agreements or disagreements that matters. So if you're able to identify um, opinions, and if you're able to identify or distinguish agreements and disagreements, you would easily be able to do well on the third part too. And it is the third part that most students find very difficult. Moving forward, we'll talk about the fourth part now, which is the last part. By now, we have dealt with apparently 30 questions. The last part would have 10 questions from question 31 to 40. Now, here I would like to mention that during first 30 questions, the audio would have pauses. So maybe question number 1 to 6, you would be asked to do first, then you would be asked to do question number 7 to 10. Although these are in the same part, then when it comes to part number 2, you would again be given a pause. First, you would be asked to do questions 11 to 14 or 15. Then you would be asked to do questions 15 to 20. Same happens in the third part. But in the fourth part, there would not be any pause. You would have to do all the questions in one go, questions 31 to 40. And this is something that most students find difficult or problematic. So prepare well, do a lot of practice and then go for the test to get good scores, because I think fourth part is easier as compared to the third part. And then, although you are being provided with a pause in the third part and then with no pause in the fourth part. So part number 4 is going to be based on an academic lecture or presentation. And as I told you earlier, that there would not be any pause. And that academic lecture or presentation would have academic vocabulary. It would have jargons. Jargons means subject specific vocabulary. Jargon means subject specific vocabulary. And the lecture could be on biology, on physics, on chemistry, on literature, on art, on painting, on the idea of collection of sand, on the idea of you know, hospitality and sustainability and all these things that are in trend. So we might see something related to artificial intelligence during this year. Cambridge has so far launched 20 books this year. We are going to be seeing book number 21. So probably we will see something related to environmental concerns or artificial intelligence in the fourth part. So, and as far as question types are concerned, you would be asked to choose no more than one word while completing the notes or completing sentences. So in the fourth part, you basically have to complete notes or you have to complete sentences, and you have to do it choosing no more than one word. In this case, you don't receive something like choosing no more than one word and or a number. More often than not, you would see something like choose no more than one word. That's it. Choose no more than one word. And here it is your understanding of synonyms that's important. Now, moving towards the next slide to talk about common listening traps. So sometimes there are traps and students become victim, and where again they could have easily gotten 7, they end up getting 6.5. Remember, if you have got 30 answers correct, you are getting 7 bands. And then similarly, if you're getting 29 answers correct, you are getting 6.5. So sometimes it's this small difference that can change the game. And so it's important for you to understand what kind of traps are being laid and what do you have to do to overcome those traps. So first of all, there is this use of words such as but, however, actually, and this is something that we'll see as we'll take a look at some live demonstration in a while. So maybe there are two individuals talking to one another, and one of them has voiced an opinion, and the other one says, but I think, and interestingly enough, both those opinions would be a part of or would be part of the options. So you have to decide on the basis of that which is close to instructions in the questions. What is it that accounts for the right answer or that accounts for correct answers? So it's a very common trap. Then changing answers in mid-sentence. Again, a very common thing. So I wanted to say that, but then I decided. So this changed the perspective altogether. I wanted to say that I would like to do these webinars in evenings, but then I decided that because there would be more people available after iftar, I think it's good for us to do these webinars after iftar or post iftar. So when I did it, I changed the perspective altogether. Interestingly enough, both these statements would be mentioned in options, but of course you will have to choose that which is close to the instructions and questions. Then word limit violation, very common. If they're saying that choose no more than one word, then please don't write 2 words. Sometimes this is something that we used to see a lot last um, during last few years, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen it lately. So instructions sometimes would read choose no more than 2 words and on a number, and sometimes instructions would read choose no more than 3 words and on a number. So this is also something that we have seen. Now it's just 1 word and on a number, but during those times or during those months and years, we saw that students would violate this a lot. So if they're being asked to choose no more than two words, they would end up writing three words. So in here, I think it's clearer and they have made it much easier because now we know in advance that we are being asked to choose no more than one word and or a number. And in part four, it's just one word. So of course, you would be cautious to not write two words or three words. Then the distinction between plural and singular. So sometimes the answer is, let's say, students, and you end up writing student. Of course, you got the right answer, but because you were not able to distinguish the singular plural thing, your answer would not be considered correct. So you need to be very careful about it as well. Then spelling errors, this is something that I've discussed with you. We'll now move forward and do this live demonstration so that you know what we are offering and what are the common traps, some of the common traps, not all, and what can you do to overcome when you're preparing for the IELTS exam independently. So we have got these questions in front of us. Again, I would reiterate, I understand and I've been informed that some of our participants are visually challenged. You don't need to worry. We are going to read everything out loud and you will hear the audio. So you don't really need to worry if you're not able to access the slides directly. So we are going to be dealing with questions 21 to 24. We are borrowing or taking this test from Cambridge book number 20. Each book has 4 tests. This is test number 1. And we are dealing with the third part of that test, which comprises of, or which would of course be comprised of questions 21 to 30. But we are going to be doing questions 21 to 24. So let me read the questions first, because again, we have got some visually challenged participants, and also this would tell you what are the things that you need to keep in mind and what kind of traps are laid out, especially in the third part. Questions 21 and 22. First, choose two letters AE. Choose two letters AE. So this is MCQ double answer. And MCQ single answer is what you are having to solve. There, you would have to choose one correct option, but in here you have to choose two correct answers or options. Choose two letters AE, A to E. Um, which two things do both? So you are going to hear this discussion on the idea of loneliness. There are two students. I think students are from the sociology department, and they're talking about the idea or concept of loneliness. So the questions read, which two things do both students believe are responsible for the increase in loneliness? Okay. Which two things do both students believe are responsible for the increase in loneliness? So both students agree. This is the keyword. Let's take a look at the options. Option A, social media. So it might be possible that if there are two students, one of them says that yes, social media is responsible, and the other says, but I don't think so. So this but would change the perspective altogether. And you cannot choose that option as a correct answer because the instructions read or the question says which two uh, question says which two things do both students believe or agree. So option A, social media. Option B, smaller nuclear families. Option C, urban design. Option D, longer lifespan. And option E, a mobile workforce. I'm repeating the options. Option A, social media. Option B, smaller nuclear families. Option C, urban design. Option D, longer lifespan. Option E, a mobile workforce. So, Sir Umair, can I request you to please play the audio?
जी डेफिनेटली लेट मी प्ले इट एंड प्लीज मुझे बताइएगा व्हेन टू स्टॉप.
Thank you. Yes, surely I will.
Part 3.
ओके सो सबसे पहले कंफर्म कर दीजिए कि ये ऑडियो जब मैंने स्टार्ट की प्ले करना तो आपको सुनाई दी सब पार्टिसिपेंट्स को.
जी मुझे तो आ रही है. I hope कि all of them can hear as well.
Okay, great. So I'm playing it यहीं से आगे.
Okay.
You will hear two sociology students called Tamara and Dev discussing their research for a presentation on loneliness. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26.
So we are being given time to take a look at questions 21 to 26, and note that names are also being provided, and situation is also being provided. I mean, everything is being made easier, but yes, there are some traps that we have to overcome, that we have to overpower to get good scores and to make sure that to ensure that we are having all the correct answers identified.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Shall we go through the notes we've made from our research into loneliness now, Dev?
Okay, Samara. It's been a real eye-opener. I had no idea that loneliness has been increasing steadily for the last 20 years.
I know. And it's the same all over the world. The downside of a modern lifestyle, I guess.
Did you come to any conclusions about what the reasons for the increase are?
Well, I'd assumed it was mainly an issue for the elderly, but in fact it's something which affects young people just as much.
So nothing really to do with longer lifespans. What about social media? In my case, far from making me feel isolated, it actually does the opposite.
It definitely does more good than harm. I'd say loneliness has a lot to do with the way cities are designed. People living in high-rise flats with not much opportunity to speak to their neighbours.
I think you're right.
Another possible reason is that people are having fewer children and don't live in large extended family groups.
But in this country anyway, that all changed decades ago. And yet loneliness is a more recent problem.
I suppose so. A more plausible explanation is that people are having to move around for work and often end up living miles away from their family and friends.
That's true.
Looking at the studies on health risks and loneliness,
Okay, could we stop here
there
for a
are
while?
claims that loneliness has as
Right.
Should I go back
So
or should I just stop here?
no, it's fine, it's fine. But when I would ask you to play, then you might want to go back a little, not too
Okay.
much, just 5 seconds.
Okay.
We have got all the options discussed. I think longer lifespan is something that was not discussed. Social media, both students agree that it does more good than harm. So this option is also minus. Smaller nuclear families. So the girl says that yes, this could be one of the reasons, but the boy says, but in this country, it changed years ago, whereas loneliness has been a more recent problem. So in this case, what we see is that smaller nuclear family is not something that both students agree with or agree on. So, whereas instructions said, what are the reasons or two reasons that both students agree with? So, urban design, so people are living in high rise buildings, so they don't get to see each other very often. And then the boy says, yes, I think you're right. So, this option is the correct answer. Then, mobile workforce. So, again, they're using different words, but concepts remain the same. Mobile workforce, towards the end, there is this discussion where they discuss how people are having to move from one place to another for work purposes, and that is why they are far away from their families, and that is why they feel lonely. And then the other participant says yes, I think you're right. So in this case, option C, urban design, and option E, a mobile workforce, these two are correct answers. Thank you, sir. Now I would like you, okay,
There's a question.
yes, please.
Yeah, Kurutulain is asking कि on the test क्या speed of audio इसी तरह से होती है, ये इसी speed पे play हो रही होती है?
So uh, it varies. It varies sometimes. So there are three difficulty levels: easy, moderately difficult, and very difficult. So what we have seen is that when the audio is very difficult, then probably the speed would be comfortable to navigate. But when the audio is easy, then you would see that the speed is a little faster. One thing, and then the other thing is that in some cases, it is very sequential. The speed continues to increase. So the first part would be very easy with the speed being very slow. The second part, the speed would become faster a little. The third part, the speed would be faster than it was in the second part. But in some cases, we have also seen that the pattern repeats. So part number one, speed would be under control. Part number two, speed would be not very fast, but fast. Part number three, again, speed would be under control. And then part number four, speed would be very fast. So there are, different things that are happening, and there have been different things that we have observed. But again, the idea is that you need to be prepared from all the possible angles. And then this we are doing to equip you with things to navigate the traps, but it can be like this and it can not be like this. Of course, we discuss all these things in detail, and um, you know with more comprehension when we are doing paid classes. So that's that. And,
Sir, there's a follow-up question also.
mhm.
How would you rate the difficulty of this audio? Would you call it an easy one?
I think it's very much agreeable, because I think the topic is something uh, with which most students would not be able to deal very conveniently, or students would struggle a little. So this audio, I think, is very easy. It's very much under control. बहुत आसान है. Accent is also very much convenient. So yes.
Perfect, perfect. Should I
Okay.
move? There's one more question. Sir, are there special arrangements for people who are hard of hearing?
Yes, yes, there are special arrangements. Again, you will have to, uh, file the request with British Council or IDP. They're going to, um, you know, ask you to produce medical evidence of what you're saying or suggesting, and then that evidence will be sent to Cambridge, and then there would be a panel of practitioners and examiners that would sit down to evaluate or assess, and on the basis of that, you would receive um, some verdict. Yes, we are able to provide you with facilitation or accommodate your request, and then on the basis of that, your test would be designed. But keep in mind that this entire process takes a very long time. If let's suppose you're planning to take the test in June or July, you should start having the exchange of emails right from today, so that the idea gets rolling. Because even when the board has approved, then too it would take 6 to 8 minutes. So sorry, 6 to 8 weeks for your exam to be arranged. Okay.
I hope that answers your question, Fahad. Should I play the audio?
Well, let me read the questions first.
Okay.
Questions 23 and 24. Again, this is MCQ double answer. Whose um, two, sorry, 23 and 24. Choose two letters AE. Which two health risks associated with loneliness do the students agree are based on solid evidence? So, solid evidence is the keyword here. So, claim might be right, but because there is no solid evidence, the students might say that, okay, we are not going to take it. So, please keep that in mind. I'm repeating again. Which two health risks associated with loneliness do the students agree are based on solid evidence? Weakened immune system, option A. Option B, dementia. Option A, weakened immune system. Option B, dementia. Option C, cancer. Option D, obesity. Option E, cardiovascular disease. Again, I'm repeating these options. Option A, weakened immune system. Option B, dementia. Option C, cancer. Option D, obesity. Option E, cardiovascular disease. Yes, sir. Could you please play the audio?
That's true.
Looking at the studies on health risks and loneliness, there are claims that loneliness has as much impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Or similar to the risks caused by obesity. But I'm not sure there's enough evidence for some of these claims.
It's about that one in that loneliness findings have been
Okay, sir, I
supported
think
by
there was some
other
distortion.
studies
I'm not sure
too.
whether students felt it or not. There was some distortion in the audio.
Gee, did you all did you guys was there a distortion? Should I play it again? Please, participants, please confirm if there was a distortion as experienced by Sarnaim. Okay, I will play it again. Just give me a few moments.
Sure.
In the meantime, you could comment on a question by Wasim, who is asking, is extra time given to people with special needs or not?
Yes, definitely extra time is provided. Um, 25 to 50% time is provided to you based on your needs, based on um, you know your circumstances and evidences or reports that you're going to submit. So you're definitely going to be provided with extra time. So there is nothing to worry about. And I think, not I think, but I'm sure, IELTS listening comes in a different form for people with special needs. It's easier, it's um, more convenient than this.
Okay, should I
So,
play it for you?
yes, please.
End up living miles away from their family and friends.
That's true.
Looking at the studies on health risks and loneliness, there are claims that loneliness has as much impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Or similar to the risks caused by obesity. But I'm not sure there's enough evidence for some of these claims.
Well, what about that one in Finland, which showed that loneliness increased the risk of cancer by about 10%? And those findings have been supported by other studies too.
You're right about that one. I was actually thinking of the studies on dementia. Some found no association between loneliness and dementia, and others found the opposite.
Not exactly reliable then. There's been a lot of research on cardiovascular disease and whether loneliness contributes to that.
Yes, I read that it was hard to reach a judgment, as the definition of loneliness varied quite a lot, and the responses from participants were too subjective. But there's no doubt that loneliness contributes to a weakened immune system.
Unquestionably, the data on that is sound.
What
Could we
did you
stop
think
here?
about the evolution?
Okay, so they help you in subtracting the options. So dementia, again, some studies support it, some do not, so it's not reliable. Obesity, I don't think one of the participants says that these, obesity is again something reliable to take in. So we have seen evidences for weakened immune system. And the other option, I think, was cancer or something. I lost the track, but
Dementia.
right. No, dementia clearly says in the audio clearly states, or the speakers clearly say or state that um, some studies have verified it, whereas some studies have not. So there is no link established between dementia and uh, you know the problem of loneliness. Anyway, so that's how you have to deal with it.
Yeah,
Sorry, yes, please.
we can play the audio again, or you could when we upload the webinar to our YouTube channel, तो आप वहां से कंफर्म कर सकते हैं. हो सकता
हाँ,
है कि हमने भी मिस कर दिया हो, बट जो
जी
मेन
जी.
पॉइंट है आई थिंक वो कम्युनिकेट हो गया.
Exactly. So let's quickly move forward. I'm not going to take a lot of time because I was just, and that's where I lost the track. I saw that it's 9:59 on the dial, and that's where I lost the track of the audio. Anyway, so how to maximize your scores? Time practice. You should please make sure to practice a lot. Then accent exposure is very important. You should be listening to the audios in American accent and British accent, in the accent coming from Australia, then in the accent coming from Canada. Then spelling is something that I cannot emphasize on enough. And for that, you should be having a notebook. And if you're practicing and finding out that there is any spelling that you're struggling with, or that you got wrong while solving your answers or while registering your responses, so make sure that you take note of that spelling. One last thing from today's discussion, um, this is something that I emphasize on a lot. Good students or students who are aiming for a band 7 or 7.5 or 8, what they do is that they go beyond simple IELTS listening. They don't focus on audios which are coming in IELTS listening only. They focus on a lot more, a lot of other things. They listen to much more than simply these audios, and that is exactly what I would recommend you. And these are some authentic and reliable places I recommended to you people in our webinar on Friday, which was basically about improving the speaking module. So you should be subscribing to some authentic YouTube channels. You should be listening to TED Talks. You should be watching movies first with subtitles and later without subtitles. It is something that is going to improve over time. So the idea is that with consistent practice and with practice beyond the IELTS exam, you can definitely improve. And that's where I would stop for the day, and I would open the forum for questions if there are any.
Okay, G, please, the floor is open. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask them.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you're perfectly audible.
Oh, thank you, sir. Well, sir, I have a question. Is there any platform that sort of online, which would assist in evaluating our speaking skills, like in levels that we are speaking in at intermediate level or advanced level, and it should also evaluate accent wise? It's not the case if somebody is good at British, so he does not know how to do well in American, so that we can practice a lot.
Okay. So to respond to your question, which basically concerns with or which deals with the speaking module and not the listening module. So you don't really need to be having an accent to get good scores. If you, I'm not sure what's your opinion on it, but most of you would agree that I have a typical Pakistani accent. I don't have any American accent. I don't have any British accent. And with this accent and with uh, less fluency than this, I managed to get 8.5 when I took the test in 2022. So it's not your accent that matters, it's your understanding of the marking criteria, which does not state that accent is important. Number one. Number two, uh, speaking for the practice or preparation of speaking, unfortunately, there is not enough. There isn't any platform available that would help you in improving your spoken discourse except for artificial intelligence. But the problem with that is that your responses may end up being monotonous, and your responses may end up having words that are not so important and that are robotic. These are some of the things that are very important to be addressed. So except for the artificial intelligence, I don't think that you can have any authentic platform where you can have your spoken discourse evaluated. And I won't say that artificial intelligence is as authentic as a human examiner. So better for you would be to engage in a conversation with some human being. It could be your examiner, or examiner, by examiner here I mean your tutor. It could be any of your friends. So just as I spoke to you about it during our last session, that you should be basically um, you know talking to some friend of yours for 20 to 30 minutes every day if you want to stay engaged in practice. And then there are some platforms on Facebook or Instagram. I mean, those platforms cater to your needs for free. Not needs as such, but those platforms are meant for people to come together to share their ideas. So you could join those groups on Facebook, or I don't know how to do that, but join those communities on Instagram to you know come in contact with people who are preparing. But stay cautious, be vigilant, stay conscious when you're sharing your information. So yeah, that's how you can do it. I hope I've addressed your question.
अच्छा, जी Fahad, does that answer your question? Acha, while we wait for Fahad to respond, there's a question in the chat box and then there's a question from Wasim. पहले मैं chat box से सवाल Kuratulan, no question is a silly question. I'm glad you asked that. से सिर्फ आपका फायदा नहीं होगा और भी जिन लोगों का ये सवाल होगा उनका भी फायदा हो जाएगा. क्वेश्चन ये है कि is a headset provided or is the audio on speaker?
Yes, headset is definitely provided to you. So there is nothing to worry about. Headset is definitely provided to you. Earlier, we used to have वो मैं आपसे कह रहा था कि paper based IELTS had a lot of complexities. So people used to struggle a lot with it. So you know, so it varies from one test center to another. Um, so people would have headsets, and using those headsets people would find problems, but because the audio has to continue, it would continue, and as a result people would lose 2 3 or 4 questions or points. This is something that we experienced a lot in IELTS on paper or IELTS paper based exam, but no longer do we receive these complaints, especially since the inception of or arrival of, not arrival of, but since the orientation, I would say, of IELTS on computer. So yeah,
Okay, that's good to know. Wasim, आपका सवाल.
Sir, what's the strategy for identifying the main idea or purpose of a listening text? The second question is, what's the best way to approach a question where the speaker uses an idiom or collocation?
um, I would like to. I mean, I hope that I have got both your questions um, exactly as they were because there was some distortion. But anyway, how to distinguish uh, main idea with supporting ideas or something like that, as far as your first question is concerned. So you don't um, struggle a lot with it if you are practicing a lot, number one, and number two, if you are going beyond simple practice test of IELTS, right? And then keep in mind that sequence is very important. So it's not the distinction between main idea and supporting ideas that matters a lot or that matters all the time. It's your sequential understanding of the audio in relation to questions. So as the questions evolve, the audio would evolve too. So it's not something that you would be struggling a lot with. And could you please repeat your second question?
Oh, okay. So the second question, what's the best way to approach a question where the speaker uses an idiom or collocation?
Um, Speaker is necessary. No, it's not necessarily important that the speaker is going to use an idiom or something like that. It's going to be just a random conversation or conversation as a whole. So idiom might be used or idiom might not be used. But as far as the best strategy to approach questions in relation to the audio is concerned, then you need to focus on the use of synonyms, and also it varies from one question type to another, and this is something that we definitely are going to do in detail during our paid classes that we are beginning after each. So it varies from one question to another, but best strategy is to stay focused and focus on the synonyms. So if you are able to do it, hopefully you will be just fine.
Okay, fine, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have more questions? Okay, I am assuming there are no further questions. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us again for this second webinar, this time focusing on the listening skill as it is assessed on the IELTS exam. I hope you found it to be a valuable session, and we will also have the recording of this webinar available on our YouTube channel. The link to our YouTube channel is provided on your screens right now. And for those of you who could not attend for any reason, or if you want to go over some of the stuff that was discussed, again, you can access the recording. It would be available soon, inshallah, by tomorrow at the latest. And also, I have a question for you guys before you leave. Um, do you do you have a preference regarding the days on which we conduct this session? So broadly speaking, do you prefer weekends like you are doing it right now, or do you prefer weekdays during Ramadan? And this I will also post in the WhatsApp group as a poll. But so we have a session on Friday, and the other session is on Sunday. So do you have a preference of days? Like, is the current model working fine? Friday, Sunday, Friday, Sunday.
Am I audible, sir?
GG.
Sir, these are the very good days
Okay.
because we can, you would say the weekdays can be difficult at times for the working people. And moreover, sorry, I could not find the unmute button of my mic. I was asking a question I put on in the chat box that do we have the options of altering the topic upon request if we don't manage to comprehend the provided listening topic?
Okay, I hope I can be heard.
Yes, yes, you can be.
Okay, so no, not at all, because again, it's a test. So test means that you're going to be doing exactly as it is required. So there is no option of you altering the topics whatsoever. You have to do it as it is. And if anything, you will lose marks and nothing else.
Challenge. Do you have more questions? Does anybody else have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I was asking this question because there can be some choices. For example, that you can be given three topics and you have to answer from one of them. That is why this question was asked. Thank you. I
No,
got the answer of all my questions.
you need to keep in mind the strategies and pattern behind the framing of each part. So first two parts are social, then the topics provided to you would be social. And if second two parts are academic, then topics provided to you would be academic. And those could be anything and from anywhere.
ठीक है जी. I think that was the last question for this session. And again, thank you so much, Sir Naeem, for a very enlightening session. And inshallah, इसी spirit को continue. समरानुल्लाह, आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे हैं? Hello?
Yes, I have one question.
जी जी, you have a
If
question?
you don't mind,
जी, please, please, please,
if you
please.
don't mind, uh, you should have to have some speaking material regarding practice tests for speaking materials.
समरान, आपकी आवाज़ बहुत ज़्यादा ब्रेक कर रही है.
या तो आप टाइप कर दें चैट बॉक्स में.
Just a moment, sir. Just a moment.
Sure.
जी जी, we are
I'm saying
waiting.
that if you don't mind, you should share some material in group to
Okay, I
for
think he's
practice.
saying that,
Yes,
yes, okay, so I got it. He's saying that you should be sharing some material regarding the listening module on the group. Sure, this is something that we can look into. There is nothing to worry about. We're definitely going, we are definitely going to accommodate all your requests. So we would do it. Okay.
just for
ठीक है.
practice. Just for practice.
Okay, great. We will, inshallah, look into your request and try our best to help you out. Thank you so much, everybody, once again. Inshallah, we will see you next Friday for our discussion on, is it reading or is it writing, Sir Naeem?
Friday is reading and then Sunday is writing. And definitely, as you mentioned earlier, we can run a poll on WhatsApp just to
Yeah,
see students' preferences and then we
yeah,
can decide accordingly.
yeah. Perfect. Chale, thank you so much. We will see you next Friday. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.